What's up, everybody? This is Jeremy Siskind. I'm the author of Playing Solo Jazz Piano, and I love today because I'm going to tell you about two of my favorite jazz pianists, and Keith Jarrett and Brad Mehldau. I've kind of, in my mind, named two different approaches to ballad accompanying after these two. And I want to tell you about how they differ. And I've made this little silly Venn diagram here, and I'm going to tell you some ways in which I think they're the same. Keith is obviously a little bit older than Brad, and Brad doesn't necessarily always cite Keith as an influence, but I think the two are related. That's my opinion. But let's get into it. So when I talk about a Keith Jarrett style ballad, I'm referencing tunes, some with a trio, some solo. He takes a similar approach either way, which is that he's often really strongly defining the quarter note with his left hand. A great example is For All We Know, which he recorded on Jasmine with Charlie Hayden. And in this recording in particular, he's playing, and he plays with such a beautiful, warm sound. He kind of plays what I think of as the brushes pattern on the drums that the drummer would use to play a ballad. And so it's like a quarter note and then 2/8. Keeping a steady beat, and he adds some really colorful, beautiful chords in the left hand. But when I hear Keith play, it's almost like there's a big separation between the melody, which is almost like the soloist or the vocalist, and then there's the accompaniment, which is mostly just kind of chugging along without a strong, necessarily, rhythmic variation, or without, doing that much that's going to alter the course of that melody. Now, while I'm playing that melody, I'm reminded of a few things that the two of them have in common, some of which I listed in the middle here. I know it's a little small to see. But one thing that they have in common is that they play melodies really expressively for a ballad. And I know that that's like, of course, everybody plays a melody expressively, but a few things specifically that they do. First of all, they mix up articulation. And I hear so many good pianists doing this, and people just slightly on a lesser level not doing this. So even though we want a ballad melody to be, pretty vocal, the great pianists mix up the articulation. Right, I'm not playing. Possible, but I think a mixture is really nice and more full of personality. Both players also really significantly backphrase their melody, right? Technically, this melody should be pickup. Sorry, that's the wrong chord. But both Keith and Brad backphrase their melody, meaning that they start each melodic phrase a couple of beats late. So, instead of playing a pickup, I might play 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 1, 2. And what I just demonstrated there is another thing that they both do really beautifully, which is reach up into the piano. And I'm going to be talking about that a little bit more lately. But for me, Keith is the great genius of making the piano sound like it's difficult to play up high, right? The piano, of course, I could play this note, this note. It's exactly as easy to play any note on the piano. But Keith, and I think Brad to maybe a lesser extent, but Brad's also really good at this, they make the piano feel like they have to reach for notes. And the way that they do this, I'll get into it a little bit more later, is by using some timing, maybe delaying a little bit so it feels like you're struggling to get that note out. Also volume, because if you're singing, you might have to sing a little bit louder to get a higher note. And also using ornaments, right? Not just playing, but having a lead up to get there makes it seem like it's taking a little bit more energy. Okay. If Keith plays pads, Brad kind of does the opposite. He will occasionally play pads, and certainly, this is a very reductive thing to do, to say, oh, they both have their style. But when you listen to Brad Mehldau recordings like Blame It on My Youth, or if you listen to I Fall in Love Too Easily, or even, I wouldn't call it a ballad, but even Blackbird. I know these are all off of Art of the Trio Volume 1, but these trends continue. You hear him doing what I called here more stabby comping. Playing the chords kind of early, especially he does a lot of chords late, and stays really off the downbeats. And he's really brilliant at using the left hand to kind of propel him. If we talked about Keith reaching, I think of Brad as having these kinds of momentous kind of rocket ship licks that are fueled by the left hand and the left hand comping. So if I'm gonna play, I'll play the same tune just for fun. I'll play Blame It on My Youth, because I'm gonna play some of what he literally plays. Blame It on My Youth is the first track off of Art of the Trio Volume 1. Interestingly, he starts it, he plays the tune in E flat major, but he starts in G major. But anyway, that's another topic for another day. Tell where the beat was as I'm playing that. I tried to start tapping my foot so you could hear the beat. But Brad's often even coming in on the 16th note, so it's 1, 2. It's this really sophisticated way of playing with the time, of adding some rhythmic intrigue to the music. Very different than what Keith is doing, just keeping kind of a consistent beat going. And a lot of what he does, he ends up really causing some suspensions to come over the bar line. So if it's, I'll play kind of the Larry Grenadier part in the bass too. Tension. And Larry Grenadier is also a genius at kind of obscuring the downbeats a little bit, not just always playing the root on the downbeat, but sometimes playing the fifth and then the root. So between the two of them, they're doing a good job of playing the harmony somewhat plainly, but also obscuring it at the same time, because they have this rhythmic interplay going. Now, I mentioned this kind of rocket ship Brad Mehldau, explosion. And you hear that on places like Blame It on My Youth. And he and Keith kind of both do this. They both, combine all of these mechanisms for creating tension. Going up in pitch, going up in volume, going up in terms of dissonance and harmonic tension, and then playing their fast notes. And if you do all of this, you can kind of create these vast arrays of tension and then release. So if I'm playing... that created this real feeling of tension, because I got louder, I went up in pitch, I played my craziest substitutions there, and I played faster, right? Those were fast notes. And then I kind of de-escalate. And the left hand actually goes along with that. The left hand's like the rocket fuel for this rocket. That's my bad Brad Mehldau impression, everybody. I'm sorry. Brad, forgive me. Forgive me, Brad, for I have sinned. But both he and Keith do this, and I want to show you a little bit of one of my favorite Ketih transcriptions. I don't know how well you'll be able to see any of this. This is I Got It Bad. Even if you can see it, it's completely illegible because it's a very difficult thing to kind of quantify rhythmically. But again, you can see, so again, we're talking about Keith, so we're talking about a strong quarter note here. And if you look at just the left hand, which I know, there's a lot going on in the right hand, but if you look at the left hand, it's somewhat chunky. It's somewhat just kind of on straight quarter notes. Of course, you look at the right hand, it's anything but. And you can see... it's so good. But as he gets higher, you can actually just like physically see that there's more accidentals. And it starts moving faster. Now there's 9 notes per beat instead of just maybe 8. Reaching, right? Anyway, I'm probably going to get flagged by YouTube for playing that if I played it too much like him. So those are a few things to keep in mind about Keith and Brad. I'll show you that whole iPad. So, on the Keith side, think about this beautiful kind of pad-like comping with this little subdivision of an 8th note in there. And with Brad, think about more stabby comping, creating kind of early or late suspensions by holding these chords over or placing an accent in there. Just a reminder, if you like nerding out about this kind of thing, then my book is exactly for you. There's a lot about Keith and Brad and Hank Jones and Oscar Peterson and Fred Hirsch and all of the pianists that you love if you're anything like me in here. Thanks so much. Like, subscribe. I'll see y'all soon.